whenever he walked in the country, people would say, Sakuschu. Such a Biscoe Sobson Nichu.
Yes, exactly.
We had a gardener called Russell Dar, and Russell Dar was my very good friend. When I was about 3 or 4 years old, I would always play with Russell Dar in the vegetable garden with him. I met the Maharaja on 1 or 2 occasions because he came to the prize giving of the mission school, and it was always polite, but not friendly, really, not really friendly. I have a screensaver on my screen. I don't think you can see it, but it is a photograph I took in Kashmir in 1958 of Manasbal Lake and the mountains of Kashmir, and I have it on my screensaver, and I look at it every day when I open my computer. Nandalal Munshi used to come to our house because he was the bursar of the school, and he was always coming to talk to my father. And he was a very kind man, and he would be very patient with me, and I would run up and ask him all sorts of questions, and he would tell me everything. So it was a very nice man.
उजाले अपनी यादों के हमारे साथ रहने दो.
Welcome to Kashmir Life. This episode of Yadیں is going to be very special, and today we have a very eminent, very respected, very dear guest, Professor Hugh Tyndale Biscoe. He is the grandson of the great Biscoe that changed Kashmir and Kashmir's education sector. We are talking to Professor Hugh. He is right now in Australia. He has served Australian education system for most of his life. He is a great biologist. He has contributed immensely to the biology of the region and world. Welcome, Professor Hugh, to Kashmir Life Show.
Mehrabani.
Well, one thing very important about Professor Hugh is that he was born in Kashmir in 1919, I believe.
1929.
1929, and he is grandson of Biscoe Saab, the founder of Biscoe School. So, Professor, do you remember Kashmir?
I don't, but I had Kashmiri teachers. I had a Kashmiri science teacher, Gopinath Matu, and mathematics teacher, Arjanath Matu. And they were the 2 main teachers I had in Kashmir, in mathematics and in science.
Do you remember the Kashmir where you were born? How was it when you were here, when you were in school, when you were in Biscoe School?
I loved Kashmir very much as a boy. I was there until I was 15. So I knew it very well. And we used to go, we did the boating on the river and swimming across the Dal Lake and climbing Mount Mahadev and all those things. Very good. But when I was very young, when I was 4 years old, my best language was Kashmiri. I could speak Kashmiri better than I could speak English. But then we went to England that year, and when I came back to Kashmir, I had shy. I wouldn't speak Kashmiri anymore. And then I forgot how to speak it.
याद छुआ के Your grandfather and your father both were speaking Kashmiri.
My father spoke Kashmiri and so did my mother. Both of them spoke Kashmiri. But they only spoke village Kashmiri, not city Kashmiri.
Acha.
They were
What was the difference between village Kashmiri and city Kashmiri?
Yeah, they learned Kashmiri at Nilnag, near Yosmarg.
Yes.
And they used to speak with the village people. And but when they were in Srinagar city, the Hindu the teachers in the school would say your Kashmiri is very bad. It's country Kashmiri. You don't speak it elegantly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, basically, it has been a long time since you are here in Biscoe School. So Kashmir has changed like the rest of the world. What are your memories about Kashmir?
The last time we were in Kashmir was in 2007. And we went to Kashmir then. Why did we go? I can't remember now. I just like to go back when I could. And I know, I took my father's ashes back to Kashmir, because when he died, he said to me he wanted his ashes spread at Nilnag Lake. And but then Kashmir was in a very bad way. There was all that fighting and so on. And so his ashes stayed here in my study for 10 years. And eventually it seemed safe enough to go back. And we went back, and the principal of the school, of the Mr. Parvez Cole, was very pleased that I was taking my father's ashes back to Kashmir, and there was a big announcement in the Kashmir Times, and we took several boys and girls from the school went up to Nilnag. We asked permission of the village people, and they said, yes, you can put the ashes in the lake. So we did that. And then afterwards, the village people put a stone notice there beside the lake. I don't know whether it's still there.
It is still there.
It is still there.
Yes,
okay.
It is.
Okay.
And, and the old man who was friends with your father, he is still alive, and he spoke very fondly of your father and your
mother. Who was that?
The old man in whose house you were staying.
Ah, right. Yes.
He's still there.
But I can't go back anymore now, because I can't walk very well, and as you know, I'm very old. I'm 96 years old, so I just stay at home. But I still remember Kashmir.
Yes. How was Kashmir when you were in school?
Well, during the Second World War, my parents ran a school for English, mainly for English boys, but Indian boys as well, and it was associated with the mission school as well. So we used to race in boats against mission school boys, and so all that time, all through the war years, we were taught by some of the masters from the mission school, as I tell you, maths and science, and then at the end, 1945, left Kashmir and went to England. And then I didn't get back to Kashmir then for about 10 years.
Yes.
And and I went to work in Peshawar for 3 years, teaching biology in Peshawar. And while I was there, on one occasion, I got a permit to go back to Kashmir. So I had 10 days in Kashmir and met all the old camp masters from the school, including Shenka Cole. Have you heard of Shenka Cole, who was the headmaster?
Cole, yes.
Yes. And he was still alive then, and I met him and others.
So how do you see the economic condition of Kashmir when you were here in the school?
At the time, Kashmir was separate from India, and Sheikh Abdullah wanted Kashmir to be an independent country. And my father was a friend of Sheikh Abdullah, and he said the same thing. You know, Kashmir's not India. And there was a very amusing occasion when my parents were leaving Kashmir in a bus, and they were the only foreigners in the bus. And an Indian official went onto the bus when they left Kashmir and they were entering India, and he asked them in English what they were doing on the bus. And my father turned to the people in the bus and said, "What's this man saying?" And they laughed and they said, "He's saying that you're a foreigner."
Yeah.
And my father said, but I'm speaking to you and he can't speak to you. He's the foreigner, not me. And they laughed at that.
Your parents were very friendly with Maharaja as well. And you wrote a very extensive book on missionary and the Maharaja. That is a great book and huge contribution to Kashmir history. But how were your relations with the Maharajas?
Not well. We polite, but not really. We didn't really see him very much. His son, Yuvraj, was the same age as me, but I never met him. There was at one stage an idea that he would come to the school my parents ran, but that never happened. So we didn't really. I met the Maharaja on one or two occasions because he came to the prize giving of the mission school, and he was always polite, you know, but not friendly, really, not really friendly.
Your relations with Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah's family was better because Farooq was studying there, Khalida was studying there. You remember those days?
Yeah, I did. My father was very friendly with Sheikh Abdullah, and I met him when I went back to Kashmir because he'd been released from jail then, and so we met him. But by then he was a fairly old man, and no longer in power. So it's been very sad actually to see what's happened to Kashmir since then. It seems to deteriorate. Actually, as I'm speaking to you now, I have a screensaver on my screen. I don't think you can see it, but it is a photograph I took in Kashmir in 1958 of Manasbal Lake and the mountains of Kashmir, and I have it on my screensaver, and I look at it every day when I open my computer. But it was so beautiful then because you could see in the photo I took, you can see the mountains on the other side of the valley. When I went back in 2007, went to the same spot, you couldn't see the mountains because the pollution in the air is so great now. And that's a very sad thing about Kashmir. The pollution is very, very bad. And mainly, my experience was that it was mainly because the too many vehicles and their engines were designed to run in India, and when they ran in Kashmir at 5,000 feet, they were always putting out lots of exhaust smoke. So they're not running at the motors in Kashmir don't run at an efficient level, so you've got a lot of pollution. If the vehicles were better designed for the high altitude, then you might not have so much pollution. That's the thing that saddens me about it. It's such a beautiful country, but it's being polluted by too many vehicles.
Yes, that is correct.
And of course,
Biscoe Sahib wrote his book. He kept his records. But there are not many records about your father, Eric.
Yes. What about him?
He didn't write a book. So were there some memories that are there in the family that you can share with us?
My father did write a book, but it was never published. It's I have a copy of it, but it's never been published. And I maybe if I live for a few more years, I'll try and publish his book. Well, you see, first of all, when I finished my career as a scientist, I had from my father, I had all my grandfather's diaries and all his stuff. And so I thought that I should write about him. And that was the book that I wrote. And all his papers are now in his college at Cambridge. And I thought that if I had time, I would try and do the same thing for my father. But I'll see if I can, whether I have time. You know what he called his memoirs, Biscoe Sahib and Nichu.
Acha, Biscoe Sahib and Nichu.
That was the title.
Yes.
Because he said all the time he worked in Kashmir, whenever he walked in the country, people would say, Sakuschu. Sachu Biscoe Sahib and Nichu.
Yes, exactly.
So he was never himself. He was always his father's son.
Son, yes. That is the towering personality that Biscoe has evolved in Kashmir. He's a legend here.
But my father, and people, once upon a time, somebody, when my father was in Kashmir, he met a Kashmiri who said, "Oh, I knew your father. He was such a great man. He could speak Kashmiri perfectly." And my father said, "I'm sorry, you're quite wrong. He couldn't speak a word of Kashmiri. I can speak Kashmiri." But he realized that all the credit went to his father, even though his father couldn't speak any words of Kashmiri.
There are the interesting stories in your father's memoir.
Yeah. Well, I think it needs to be edited. It's too long. And just as I edited my grandfather's story for that book, I could do the same thing for my father, because he knew the old Hindu teachers like Shaker and those men. In his memoirs, he writes several of their stories because they told him stories about old Kashmir. and he's included those in his book. So there are stories. There's this one story he told was there was a famine. There was a famine in Kashmir a long time ago, and or shortage. Oh, and so people from the villages brought water in gurras to the fort. You know what the fort. And then they gave this water there to the mullahs to help them get them food. And they poured the water into a tank, and then everybody took water out of that tank. And of course, it was all contaminated with cholera. So everybody who went there got cholera, and it helped. More of them died. And Schenker told my father this story. And maybe you'll see it's in his book. Yeah. So, old stories from Kashmir.
Yes. This story is quite popular in Kashmir. Even Biscoe Saab has also written about it, and we have earlier that Valley of Kashmir, Lawrence Saab, he has also written about it.
Oh, Lawrence Saab, you know that story?
Yes, I know that story.
Lawrence, yes.
Yes.
Well, my grandfather knew Lawrence. Well, I've told it in my book. They went out into the country together. Yes.
When you were in school, how was the economic condition of Kashmir?
When I was at school,
how was the economic condition of Kashmir?
Very poor.
Very poor.
Very poor.
Why?
Yeah, very poor. I don't know. I think mainly because the Maharaja and his entourage, they took most of the money. And it was really only when Sheikh Abdullah took over from the Maharaja that the money in Kashmir was shared with the people. Before that, the money was held by the Maharaja, and the Maharaja was very wealthy, and of course he had a lot of people who worked for him, and they became very wealthy. But most people in Kashmir were very poor when I was young. In fact, all the houses had straw roofs made of straw or birch bark. And one of the things my father said when the last time he went to Kashmir, he said, how extraordinary it is to see all the houses now have iron roofs. They never did when he was young because they couldn't afford that. It was too poor. And I mean, the people that we met in Neil Nag were very, very poor. And yes. A lot of beggars too, there used to be. And that's changed, I think, quite a lot now. Kashmir is much wealthier than it used to be. People have a better life than they did then. On the other hand, it's polluted because that's what happens everywhere in the world.
जैम कैश व्हीकल्स एक सायादार दरख्त की तरह कई खिदमात लोगों की आसानी के लिए फराहम करता आया है, जैसे नई गाड़ियों को खरीदना, सेकेंड हैंड गाड़ियों की खरीदो फरोख्त, तिजारती गाड़ियां भी मैसर होंगी और टू व्हीलर व्हीकल्स भी दस्तयाब यहीं। आपके लिए गाड़ी चलाना आसान हो, उसके लिए मारुति ड्राइविंग स्कूल की खिदमात, अपनी गाड़ी के लिए जरूरी सामान खरीदना हो या चलते चलते गाड़ी खराब हो जाए और ठीक करानी हो, उसके लिए वर्कशॉप भी यही। तशरीफ लाएं जैम कैशवे ग्रीट्स हैदरपोरा श्रीनगर, हमें खिदमत करने का मौका दें।
You remember the day you left Kashmir?
I remember the day I left Kashmir was in 1945 in a bus going down the Pindi Road to Rawalpindi. It was, a very windy road, that road down the Jhelum River. Have you ever been on that road?
Yes,
Don't
up
suppose
to
you ever have.
Yes, up to Uri.
You have been there?
Up to Uri, yes. Up to Uri. Uri.
Oh.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah.
But we have an alternative road now that goes to Jammu via Banihal.
Yeah, I know. That's been closed for ever since independence, really.
Yes.
Yes. That was the main road in and out of Kashmir when I was a child, to go through to Pindi. The Murray Road was not used very much. But that's the only route in. Yeah. Yeah. What else can I remember from that time? I don't know. Lots of boats. Are there still lots of boats on the river and on the lake? Dungas, kuchus, shikaras, they all there still?
Yeah. Yes, now we have more houseboats.
Yeah, more houseboats.
Yes. Kuchus are quite a few, and the other boat is also very, very small in number now. But
are there many tourists coming to Kashmir now?
Yes, tourists are coming. Good numbers.
Are they?
But not many Europeans. Not many Europeans. In your period, most Europeans would come.
Mostly Indians coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Domestic tourists.
Yeah. Well, I suppose they were frightened off by the dangers that were in Kashmir for a long time. When my wife and I went to Kashmir in 2007, we were warned by the Australian government that it was dangerous for us to go there. We shouldn't go. But we did. We went anyway. But while we were in Kashmir, we were never left alone. Always there was a Kashmiri friend with us everywhere we went in Kashmir. I think because they felt it was dangerous. And that's frightened a lot of people away from Kashmir now. I don't know how dangerous it is for you now.
It is very safe. It is very peaceful now.
Okay.
There are a lot of tourists coming now.
Yes.
You had friends?
I had friends.
Yes.
You say?
Yes.
In Kashmir?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, I had one friend. When we were children, we played together. He and I were the same age, but he was a Hindu. And when the troubles occurred in 1980, he left Kashmir with his family and went to Delhi. But he'd been a school teacher in Kashmir before that. And they went to Delhi, and it was very hard for them in Delhi because he had no work, but his children got work there. And I used to help him. I helped him buy a flat and helped him to live in Delhi until eventually he died. Now his children have all settled in Delhi, and they don't go back to Kashmir. But he always wanted to go back to Kashmir, but he couldn't. And he lived in the village just near Gagrabal Point. He had a house there, But of course, when they had to flee from Kashmir in 1980, and he left his house behind, and then he lost his house. And that's why they were having difficulties when they went to Delhi.
Your grandfather had written a book, but what led you to write another book about him?
He wrote a book. Yes, he did. He wrote 2 books.
Yes.
Or 3 books.
3 books.
One book was called Kashmir in Sunlight and Shade. That was in 1920. He then wrote another book called Character Building in Kashmir.
Yes.
About the same time. And then in his last years, he wrote his autobiography, which was called Tyndale Biscoe of Kashmir. That wasn't the name he gave it, but that was the name his son gave it, who published it.
Right. That is why I am asking you, why did you write then another book? Was there enough?
Why did I write it?
Yes. Yes.
I wrote it because I had all his diaries and all his papers, and I thought it would be interesting to write a book with which was more scientific than just a flattery of the person. I wanted to find out what really made him do what he did. And as at the launch of, when the book was launched in Canberra, I said that I was trying to write the book as a scientist about one male primate.
Oh.
I wanted to write dispassionately, and that's why all through the book I called him Biscoe. I never used his first name because I was trying to be a scientist, looking at the behavior of a particular person.
Did you share the stories that Biscoe Saab had told you when you were a child about Kashmir, about his mission?
Oh, he always told stories. All the time he told stories. We used to go, we lived in the house next door. We would go every Sunday, we would go and have lunch with grandparents, and he would sit at the table and he would spend the whole lunchtime telling his stories about all sorts of things.
He might have told you stories about the resistance of the system when he came here to make Kashmiris study, go to school.
Yes, that was what he always felt, and I think he did a good job. But of course, he brought up in the era when the British thought they knew everything, and they didn't. So some of the things he did were probably would be criticized today. He was very fond of punching people.
Right.
And nowadays you don't do that sort of thing. But it was thought to be all right when he was young, and it wasn't really. And he also believed that the British did everything right and they did nothing wrong. And again, he wasn't right in that. But then you mustn't judge a person by a different time from the one in which they live.
Exactly, yes.
And so that was what I was interested in, to see how he lived at the time. And of course, Kashmir was a really strange place when he went there. When you think that there were no wheels, not a cart, nothing. They didn't know what a wheel was in Kashmir. Everything was carried either on kuchus or on horses, ponies. And when my grandfather first went to Kashmir, when he went the second time, he took a bicycle with him to Kashmir. And when he rode on the path, people would fall down and pray because they saw this angel thing. They didn't know what it was.
Really?
This thing that was flying along the road. It was completely strange to them, and so they fell down on the road and thought it was God.
Really?
And he told me about that and what they've thought. But very soon they learnt what a bicycle was, that it was a useful thing. But he went to Ladakh in 1896, I think. And he had a study in his home with lots of things in it. And when I was a boy, I used to go over there and I would pull things out of his desk and say, "Oh, Grandpa, can I have this, please?" And he would always say, "Oh, yes, you can have that." So I have quite a few things here in my house which came from Ladakh. Things that he had collected when he went there in 1896. And I collected from his study and kept from him.
How was the British community then, as you remember?
How was the British community
in Kashmir when you were a child?
Oh, it was a very mixed lot of people, all sorts of different people. There were quite a number of people who had retired from service in India and didn't want to go back to England. So they hired a houseboat in Kashmir and they lived in the houseboat. They couldn't buy land because the Maharaja wouldn't allow them to buy land. So they all lived in houseboats. And there were quite a number of them, mostly along the Bund, not out at the Dal Gate, but at the Bund. And some of them were very strange people. There was one old colonel who had been in the First World War in France. And he had been, I think he'd been gassed, or anyway, he couldn't speak properly, and he always shook his head. And he used to walk along the Bund, this strange man walking along the Bund, not speaking to anybody, but just shaking his head. He was one of them. And there were what other ones? Well, quite a lot of people who ran shops on the Bund, English people who ran shops, and they were just independent people. And then the other group of people I remember going in Kashmir were explorers who were going to Central Asia. and they used to come through Kashmir on their way to Central Asia. And some of them were traveling with animals like yaks and things like that. But some of them were beginning to travel with big motor cars, which they were trying to drive through the mountains to Central Asia. I don't know whether they ever got through or not, but they had these very big motor cars. Yeah, those are the ones. And of course, there were quite a few people working in Kashmir, doctors and missionaries. And so they were the sort of people we met. But I was trying to, I wanted to tell you that, make it clear to you that I was very big influence on my life when I was a small boy were the wonderful men who were the teachers in the mission school. They were such gentle men, very polite and very educated, and they could speak English well, and I used to spend a lot of time with them. Samsar Chand, have you heard of him?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I knew him very well, Samsar Chand, and because he liked animals and plants, that set me on the way to being a biologist, I think.
So you remember Neve brothers?
Who? Neve brothers?
Neve.
No, Arthur Neve died in 1919 from that disease. You remember the disease in 1919 that killed millions of people around the world? Well, Arthur Neve died from that disease. Ernest Neve didn't. He lived on. I knew him in Kashmir, but he was not an easy man to know. He wasn't friendly. He's severe man. So I didn't know him well. Who else was there?
Mallinson.
Oh, yes, she was a lovely person. Muriel Mallinson, yes. I knew her very well, indeed. And we'd go over to her house a lot and visit her, because she lived next door to us in Sheikh Bagh. And there was Miss Palin was another woman who taught painting at the girls' school. And she taught me painting as well. Yeah, I don't know. That's about. But and then we also had. I was very friendly with the Muslim servants that we had. We had a gardener called Russell Dar, and Russell Dar was my very good friend. When I was about 3 or 4 years old, I would always play with Russell Dar in the vegetable garden with him. And if I ever grazed my knee, cut my knee when I fell, Russell Dar would always put soil in. He'd pick up soil from the vegetable garden and he would rub it into my wound, because that was what Kashmiri peasants always do. And I always tell people that the reason that I'm very healthy now at the age of 96 is because Russell Dar used to rub the soil into my wounds. And so you either died or you became very healthy from that treatment from Kashmiris. And so I always thank Russell Dar, because I think he gave me a healthy life. and then we had another Kulak Da was another servant we had, and so we had the Muslim servants and the Brahmin teachers at that time. But that was changing when I was a boy, and more of the Muslims were coming into the school. And then, of course, eventually the Hindus all left in 1990, I think, which I think was very sad because, as my father used to say, Kashmiri Hindus and Muslims are all ethnically the same race. And they were all Hindu until whatever it was, 1300, when a Muslim preacher came to Kashmir and converted people. Before that, everybody was the same. And many Kashmiris have the same family name between Hindus and Muslims. Well, Russell Dar and Kulak Dar were both Dar, but Dar is also a Hindu name as well as a Muslim name.
So you knew Subhana Jam?
You mean the shopkeeper?
There were two Subhana. One was Subhana the worst.
There was Subhana the worst.
Yes.
Yes, he was called, well, I don't know. Some English person came and gave him that name, and then he said, well, all right, I'll keep that name. So he had this shop, Subhana the worst.
We had a barber, hairdresser.
Yeah.
His name was also Subhan, and he was Biscoe Saab's friend.
All right. I remember we had a barber. I didn't think his name was Sabana, though. You say it was. How do you know that?
Because that is history. Basically, he was an activist as well. Subhana was an activist. He was trying to close the chapter of prostitution in Kashmir.
Beg your pardon?
He was trying to close the chapter of prostitution.
Really?
And Biscoe Saab was great help to him. So I wanted to ask you, how did you see the Lal Chowk area? Lal Chowk. I mean the place where Biscoe School is.
Oh, it's changed. Well, it used to be in the city at
Yes.
Fateh Khattal.
Yes.
But that's gone. That's gone a long time ago. I can remember did you ever see it like that?
No, I didn't see Fateh Khattal ever.
No, it was in an old city building that had been rented from 1890, I think it was. They started renting it, and then they just added bits onto it, and one of the main features they had, and that was true when I was at the school as well, because the buildings were made of wood. My grandfather was always worried that there could be a fire and that the boys must be able to get out of the buildings very quickly. So he had those big poles that the boatmen used to pole their boats, and he used to have them fixed from the verandas of the upper floors, and we all had to learn how to slide down the pole from the upper floor to the ground floor.
Oh.
And so that we could get out of the building very quickly. And we all did that every day. We would go out, we would get out of the building by the poles rather than on the staircase.
Great.
And I don't know that there was ever a fire, but there were earthquakes as well. There still probably are earthquakes in Kashmir, And so it was also a good thing to get out quickly in an earthquake as well. But that's all I remember that of the old school at Whatukaddle. It was the sort of the performance that the whole school had to put on for visitors. The bell would ring and then everybody would come out of the classrooms and slide down the poles and onto the field.
You ever joined that swimming competition?
Yes, I used to swim. Yeah. Do they still do the swim across the Dal Lake?
Very rarely now, not much.
Well, I did the swim across the Dal Lake from Guggerable Point to the Nishat Bridge and then back again. So that was 7 miles. Took all day. And we weren't allowed to rest on a boat, but we were allowed to eat. So we would be given kulchas and eat them in the water, lying on our back. Yes. But all the missions, many boys in the school did that swim every year. There'd be hundreds of people doing the swim. And the main idea was so that they knew how to swim and then could rescue people that were drowning. But I never saw somebody drowning, did that.
There were many instances in which
they did. I think altogether about 400 or 500 people were saved from drowning during the course of the school. When I was writing that book about my grandfather, I worked out how many, and it was around about 400 people's lives had been saved by the schoolboys.
So
but I don't know whether they do that now.
Yeah, I did read that book. Kids who would rescue people, why are they being then honored in the school before other students so that others get motivated to do the same?
Are they? No, not motivated. No. Well, the thing was that my grandfather was didn't approve of the moving of the school from Whatukaddle to Sheikh Bagh because he said he was only interested in teaching poor boys. He didn't want to teach rich boys. But the school, when it moved to Sheikh Bagh, it became a school for rich boys because they charged fees and they did have some free places. Pervez always told me they had some free places, but mostly there was a school for people who could afford to pay. And I think the attitude to a lot of those sort of things, like saving lives from drowning, got lost in that change. So the old ideas were, I don't know, maybe more, I don't know, people change their mind about things with time.
How was Mallinson's style of teaching different from Biscoe's?
I don't think she was terribly concerned about the standard of teaching of the girls. She was much more concerned about trying to rescue the girls from the terrible restrictions that they were placed on girls in mainly the Hindu population in Kashmir. And that was the thing that concerned her most. and it was said there was a bit of criticism of her that her education standards were not very high, and her teachers were not very well qualified. However, when my parents went back to Kashmir in 1961, Muriel left about that time, and a Ladakhi woman became the principal, and she was very good. And my father got on very well with her, Premi Girgan.
Yes, I know her.
You know her? You knew her?
I know her.
Yeah. Well, she's dead now.
Yes, she died. I talked to her brother last month.
All right. Well, I knew her uncle, and I didn't know her father, but that family had been associated with the school from about 3 generations. And she raised the education standards in the girls' school, and then Pervez Pervez's wife has continued that. And when my wife and I were in Kashmir in 2007, the girls' school put on a big show for us, and the girls spoke in beautiful English, and we were very, very impressed with how good their education was and how confident they seemed to be. You know, they were very well educated and very confident, and it was wonderful to see it. And I think credit to everybody who's been involved in that school.
Do you have some idea about how this presentation convent and Burn Hall emerged in Kashmir?
Yeah, they were there when I was a boy.
Oh.
I think we used to even play football against Burn Hall School. So they've been going a very long time, those ones. Yeah, so they've been going since the 1940s. Are they still there now?
They're still there, yes.
Ah,
yes.
Yes. They also teach in English, do they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Were there tensions between Catholics and Protestants in Kashmir?
No, I don't think so. No, I think my grandfather always had good relations with the Catholic priests in Kashmir, because he respected them. He respected their religion, and he was only interested in really what they did. And if they did good things, then he respected them. So, and I think that was mutual. I don't think they had any problems. It's a very a tragic thing, actually. But then you've got the same thing in Islam.
Yes.
You know, you've got sects who don't work together, don't.
Yes.
Shia and Sunni, and so I guess it's a human failing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, were there some, basically, when you were in the Biscoe school, there were too many Christian missionaries around who were into health and who were in actually spreading the faith they believe in.
Yeah.
Do you
missionaries
have any? Yes.
in the school?
Yes, in Kashmir.
Oh yeah, there were a lot of different foreigners there. There were people from Europeans who belonged to the Reformed Church in Europe. There were, of course, Catholics. There was even some Greek Orthodox people. So I don't know. I guess people were very keen to convert other people to their beliefs. I think it's a strange idea, this of wanting to make people change, and I don't agree with it myself. I don't think it, and in fact, the missionaries in Kashmir were never very successful. I don't think there's very many Christians in Kashmir now. And my grandfather, of course, as I said in my book, my grandfather was not a very popular missionary with the Missionary Society
Yes.
because he didn't think it was important to convert people. He thought it was important how they lived their lives. That's what he was interested in. And, you know, his best friends were the Kashmiri pundits who never converted. There's a lovely photograph of Shankar Cole. He was the headmaster. And Nandalal Munshi, who was the bursar. And Samsar Chand, who was the biologist. And they're all standing together. And Shankar is a very old, bent man, but they're all laughing together with my parents. And that was the last photo we ever had of the three of them. But they were really good friends. And I can remember when I was a small boy, Nandalal Munshi used to come to our house because he was the bursar of the school, and he was always coming to talk to my father. And he was a very kind man, and he would be very patient with me. And I would, you know, run up and ask him all sorts of questions, and he would tell me everything. So he was a very nice man. And I think I told you this last time. Samsar Chand was the man who knew all about the birds and the flowers, and it gave me my first introduction to biology, which I've continued all my life. So those men had a big influence on me when I was young. And yeah, lovely men.
When you were young boy, the foreigners, the Christian missionaries and visitors and officials, they had a separate setup they had a club, they had their own church, and
yes, it was not a good time in the world in those days. There was a very much of a separation. We lived a separate life, really. Even though my parents tried to live much more closely, my parents learned to speak Kashmiri, and they always talked Kashmiri in the house to the servants, to everybody. And we used to go to meals with the staff. And my grandfather used to be very surprised. He said, "Oh, it's amazing that you go and have meals with them. We never thought we could ever do that, you know." So they must have had this idea that they were different, and they didn't understand the culture. My grandfather never learned to speak the language, and my grandmother, my grandmother didn't learn to speak Kashmir, any language, and we used to have a little joke in our family about grandmother because every night when the servant came, she thought she was asking the servant, "Have you fed the dog?" Because they had a pet dog. But what she was actually saying was, "Have you eaten the dog's dinner?" She would say to the servant, "Kutaka kana kaya?" And he would say, "Ha, huzur." And we used to laugh like anything that our grandmother would ask the servant every day, "Have you eaten the dog's dinner?" And he would reply, "Yes, madam, I have." That's the only foreign language she knew. She'd never learned how to speak any language. And so it was a different world, that one. And I'm glad to say it's changed. I think the world's changed for the better, much better now.
Those clubs that Kashmir had, that we had Amar Singh Club, we had Srinagar Club, they were exclusivist.
Very exclusive. Yeah. And the British did that everywhere they went. They did it in Australia as well. And but it was, yeah, I don't know. I suppose it was the way that they managed their commercial interests, because primarily Britain was only really interested in making money out of India, and in the war, during the Second World War, Churchill demanded enormous amounts of food from India at the expense of India, so that there was a Bengal famine in I think 1943 or 44, and it was an artificial famine. It was caused because the food that should have been eaten in India was taken to Britain. So there were some very bad things were done during that time, and it was completely an imposed regime, and not a very good one, I think. We always used to think it was very good, and trains ran well, the police did a good job, and the place was kept in order. But and my grandfather said, of course, the Indians will never be able to govern themselves. He had that prejudice very strong, and he was completely wrong, of course. But
and when you were a student, a young boy, did you remember any story that the grandfather told you or your father told you about the suppression that Kashmir had then?
Suppression?
Yes, in Kashmir.
Well, no, I mean the suppression that we all thought was the really serious one at that time was the Maharaja. The Dogra suppression of Kashmir was the dominant thing, and it was kept in place by largely by the Brahmin Hindu bureaucracy, and again, in a way, my grandfather and my father took some pride in thinking that the way they had educated the boys in the school was made it possible that when the Maharaja finally ran away and Sheikh Abdullah took over, they were ready to lead the country. And so most of the first members of Sheikh Abdullah's government were old boys of the mission school.
Yes.
And in fact, 2 or 3 of them became chief ministers in the first years after independence. So in that sense, that was a lasting benefit of the school, that it had taught the boys how to be responsible people. And I suppose that's why it still goes today. But I mean, it's not the same sort of school as it was in those days. It's much more of a upper class school. Just like the church schools in Australia are the upper class schools here. You know, all the church schools are the private schools where the wealthy people send their children here in Australia. And it's the same in India.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Mm.
It is.
Yeah.
So I think we completed this conversation in 3 sessions.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's been good. It's been good to talk to you. I'm sorry there was all that mess up yesterday. I don't know what happened. And today, when you didn't appear when I was expecting you, I was thinking, what can I do? And I thought, well, what I usually do in this sort of, I ring up my younger son, who is very good at these things, and I was just about to ring him up and say, can you sort out this problem that I've got with... However, just in time you came on, and it's all worked all right. In 1958, when I visited Kashmir for a few days, and the air was so clear that you could see the Pir Panjal on the other side of the valley. In 2007, when Marina and I went back, we went back to this very same spot on the edge of Manasbal Lake, and I stood at the same place and I tried to take the same photograph, and you could see nothing beyond the lake, because I think the reason is that all the motor cars in Kashmir, their engines have been tuned for India at a lower altitude, and they now have to drive at this high altitude of Srinagar, and they don't burn the fuel properly, so you have an enormous amount of exhaust from all the trucks and all the motorcycles and everything. And if the motors were better tuned to the altitude, you might not have so much pollution.
Yes. We do have that problem.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that every time when I've been back in recent years, it's just this smog everywhere. And that's my explanation. I don't know whether it's right or not, but it's that the motors are not properly tuned for the higher altitude, which they should be.
Thank you.
Good.
So nice of you.
Been good. Bye-bye.
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 Bye.
मुझे सब है याद ज़रा ज़रा, तुम्हें याद हो कि न याद हो।